Welcome everyone for another Monday with Thus Live. We've been around for 6 years as Thus Critique. We meet every Monday at Gunpowder. We've been having discussions about politics, the environment, Goa, India, history, and once in a while we bring in some music because we're from Goa. So today we actually have a really exciting session because we present to you one of Goa's great legends, Steve Siqueira, in a conversation with Naresh Fernandes. We've just had a long discussion when Steve has explained to me that Steve is a Goan Afrikander. In the 60s, Steve, who grew up in Dar es Salaam, moved to Goa. I was very surprised to find that everybody was calling him Afrikander, which we have just confirmed through a Google search is actually a kind of sheep. But anyways, Steve, as all of you know, needs no introduction in this forum. Steve has been this incredible jazz musician who brought, who's performed in Bombay, Goa, across the country. And Naresh, apart from being the editor of Scroll, is also the author of the Taj Mahal Foxtrot and has been researching jazz history, particularly Indian contribution to jazz history. Well, most of it is actually Goan musicians. And so we are really excited to have this. Naresh is going to take us through the life of Steve, through time and space, through songs. We have lots of songs for you guys, and it's really exciting. So guys, I'm going to leave it to Naresh. Thanks.
Thanks for having me, Alok, and that's pretty. And hi, Steve. Good to see you again. The last time we were actually sitting physically in their space when last I saw you. So I thought we'd call this session The Life of Steve Siqueira Through Time, Space, and Sound.
Okay.
And to begin with, I'm going to play a piece of sound that Steve, perhaps we can begin to talk about that later, but I think it sort of sets the scene for Steve Siqueira's emergence.
Naresh, I think Steve needs a leading question.
I beg your pardon?
Steve, can you hear us?
I can hear you all, yes, I can.
Can you hear the music?
No, I can't.
Okay, let me attempt to do this again.
Share screen.
Share screen, share computer sound, share. Okay, now let's hope it goes. Does it work now?
I can hear you.
Mama wakina Sophia, mwambie Sophia wangu, naye atange vile na milele na milele. Mama wakina Sophia, mwambie Sophia wangu, naye atange vile na milele na milele. Mama we, dada we, mwambie yule wangu, naye atange vile na milele na milele.
Oh, wow.
Steve, does that sound familiar?
Yeah, it does actually. Swahili all the way through.
So I, years ago, when I was prowling through Panjam and sort of, I don't go there very often, I used to stop at a store called Raga and Rock. And I found this CD, which is called Go Africa.
Oh,
And,
right.
it is the music, Swahili music by Goan musicians who grew up in Dar es Salaam.
Wow.
Their names as Joe Paul and Sabi. And suddenly it opened a whole new world to me. The only song I actually knew from it was, of course, Malaika. And that's because I knew it from the Boniam version, not the version you probably knew from your childhood. And then a little later, I came across this book by a woman called Judy Watson,
Yes, yes,
uh,
yes.
called Waiting for the Sunrise, the Goan Musicians of Dar es Salaam. Uh, and then, of course, I realized that there was a whole history of Goans in East Africa. My grandfather, of course, was part of it. My great grandfather, who died in Mozambique, but human memory is so fallible, I immediately forgot about it. So, Steve, tell us about you in Dar es Salaam.
Tell you about me in Dar es Salaam. Good evening, everybody, and all feeling good. Dar es Salaam in Arabic means haven of peace. And that's what it was for me. Peaceful, very happy place with music that wasn't quite like what you played. It was more throbbing and vibrant and stuff. Yeah. Tell me, Naresh.
How did you get to Dar es Salaam?
How did I get to Dar es Salaam?
How did you find yourself there?
I was born there, Naresh, and grew up my whole childhood, my schooling, and my A-levels and university and everything was there. Although we did come to Goa intermittently, whenever my parents could get leave from the jobs that they were doing. So I did come to Goa when I was 4, when I was 7, when I was 14, and then finally this time when I was 21. But yeah, Dar es Salaam was home for me for a long time, until they decided it wasn't.
So you tell us about your family. You said you were born in 1946.
Yeah.
And how long had your family been in that part of the world?
I really wouldn't know. My dad finished school in Goa. He did this Portuguese thing called second grau or something like that. And his friend was already working in the British Army in Nairobi. And he called him down, so Dad went along and got into the British Army as a clerk. Mom is from Kandoli, and she was an orphan in a school in Hubli. And she and her brother, Uncle Tony. Mom's name was by the way. And Uncle Tony went off to Dar es Salaam before she did, of course, he was older. And he got a break working in a bank. And then he brought Mom down there. Mom was teaching in this school in Hubli after finishing her studies. And she went off to Dar es Salaam and joined this school called St. Joseph's Convent, to which I attended as well when I got of age. And we had this very old house made of wood, 2 stories of it, just behind the old church, with a very huge mango tree in the middle. We'd spend time throwing stones and trying to knock down mangoes. Yeah, so I was in that house, and I went to that school. And I don't quite know exactly how my mom and dad met, but what I'm told by both of them is that they used to play badminton. And they were both, I suppose, I don't know, they got together, joined. There was a club in Dar es Salaam called the Goan Institute. And they would have a lot of activities, sports, dances, hops, whatever. Not much theater, but yeah. And so they joined the tournament and won and sort of got together. And the next thing they knew was that they had got married.
Game, set, and match.
Game, set, match, yeah.
And tell us about how your musical journey started. You said you started the lessons at 4.
Yeah, I started piano. Somehow we always had a piano at home. I really don't know where it came from, but we had a piano at home, a Challen, low back. And mom had studied piano in the orphanage that she was in. So by the time I was 4, actually, we were 2 families. There was my mom's family, that's us, and my Uncle Tony's family. That was Donald, Norma, and Yvonne. Norma and Donald were both older than me. And they started off learning piano with my mom. And then moving on to better teachers or higher grades and things like that. So there was a tradition that each of us had to go through. And I was next. After Donald, I was next. Yeah, I started studying under Mummy when I was 4 years old. And I did 2 grades of the Royal Academy of Music with her. So that was 5 and 6. And then she said, okay, I think it's better that you go on to a more professional lady who was a nun in the school that we were going on. Her name was Sister Sylvia. She was a Swiss nun. And she was an amazing classical pianist herself. And that's when I started going to her. And this was all classical piano, playing for exams. The Royal Academy professor would come down once a year. We'd all go trooping in one after the other to play our pieces. We had the whole year to prepare for the pieces. This is interesting because we would learn the pieces in about 3 months or 4 months. And then you'd start making changes in the pieces to make it more interesting for yourself. And so this one fine day when I went in for a grade 5 exam, I forgot myself and started playing the changes that I had put into this piece. And the examiner didn't say anything. He just waited till I finished the whole thing. And then he said, okay, that's very good. Now will you play what's in the book? And my teacher was listening outside the door. She ran down to Mom and she said, oh God, he's failed. He's gone and made a blunder. And so I was okay. My ear tests were good. My scales were good. Everything was all right. I came out and after a week, the results came and I got a distinction. I was thrilled about it. So, yeah, so then I carried on with her till I had reached grade 6. But in the meanwhile, I was always drumming with forks on the table and plates and got different sounds and glasses, and I broke quite a few and this sort of thing. And my dad said, I think maybe he'd like to play some drums. And I said, yeah, sure. So here comes this very small drum set. Well, I was only about 6 or 7 years old anyway. And I started hammering on that, and unfortunately I broke it in about 2 weeks' time. And that was that. A lot of the other kind of music, not the classical stuff, was being taught to me by my cousin, by Donald. He was, like I said, ahead of me, but he was already playing a lot of swing jazz, which was the kind of stuff they used to do at that time. And I would listen to him, and whenever there was a drum set around, he would tell me, you go sit on the drums and play along. And I did that, and drumming was just a natural thing. It just came. You listen to something, and you try and play it, and it worked. It was great. I enjoyed it. And so we went on like that, and we formed a band of young guys. I remember a few of them. We had bass, double bass, and mouth organ, and we had one guy, Rose Paul, who played only the mouthpiece of the trumpet, not the rest of the trumpet. And it would sound somewhat like a kazoo, and it was quite interesting. He could solo and everything. It was very nice. And we formed a band called the Cream Cracker Band. We were all below 12. And then the institute said, we must have this little band play little hops in the morning. So first of all, the big band played. I think it was the DeMello Brothers. And then we played, and we got this huge applause. We got so knocked out by it. And when we had to play the second song, we played the first song again, not realizing what we were doing. And that was that. Donald moved on and he went to Nairobi. And I finished my school, my O-levels here, and also went to Nairobi. And I was in high school in Nairobi. And the two of us would, at times, get together and play in a couple of restaurants in Nairobi. One of them was the Swiss Grill. And another was a certain jazz club, actually, where a lot of musicians would come from all over the world and play after 1 o'clock in the night, from 1 to about 4. So I would go and play over there with them. I mean, that was basically my beginning. You know? Later on, I played with some other, maybe I'm getting too far ahead of the story. But yeah, that's how it started, playing jazz.
Watson's book talks about bands like the GI Jazz Swingers, GI not being General Infantry, but Goan Institute.
Goan Institute.
And the other, who were the other people you remember from that time there?
The Jazz Swingers were the most popular band. They were very good. And they got even better one time when a drummer from Bombay came and joined them, and his name was Gillis Vaz, if I'm not mistaken. And he joined them, and I said, wow, this guy's good, man. I would go to the hops. I mean, I was allowed to go to the hops. I wasn't allowed to go to the dances at that time. That was one band. Also, to add to that, because we had a piano at home, and it was difficult for the bands to get hold of a piano to rehearse. A lot of them would come home and practice at home. And in time, I had got a little better drum set. And once in a while, they would say, come on, Bidu, sit. Well, they didn't say Bidu, they would say Toto. I said, come on, sit on the drums and play with us. And I'd play with them. I knew how to swing, and I knew the songs, and I knew, you know, the verse and the introduction and the bridge and the chorus and the ending and all this other thing. It would all come pretty natural. And yeah, so the Jazz Swingers was this one band. The next big band was the DeMello Brothers, who played a lot of shows, also at the GI. I don't know where else they played. And then one fine day when I was about 12 or something, 13, my dad came running home from a hop in the morning, which I didn't go to, told me to dress up and said, come with me, I want to show you something. And I went with him, and there was this sax player from Bombay called Mr. Remy DeMello. And he was wild. I mean, he was out of this world. I couldn't believe he was doing all the things he was doing on sax. I was transfixed. And because by that time also, I was listening to maybe a few years later, I had got my first Dave Brubeck album, and I heard Paul Desmond, you know, on that. And my main guy was Rasa and Roland Kirk. And this guy was that level. He was amazing. Much later, when I finished my A-levels and came back, I joined Remy and his band. And then I realized that he didn't only play sax, he played trumpet, he played clarinet, he played flute, he played bass, he played drums, he played piano. He was a real band leader. You know? He was amazing. It was the first time I had been in the company of a band leader. He'd tell you what to do and how to do it, and what he was trying to get out of the song. That was fantastic times. And through all this, there was this third band, which I thought they were absolutely fantastic. They were the Tony Ferns Quartet. And I remember all of them. There was Tony on sax and Neri on piano, who would always play with his head buried into the keys. You couldn't see him. There was Hilario on drums, and a cousin Paul on bass. The first three are all brothers. And they owned a bar, and they would play behind the counter at the bar. And whenever we could get a chance, we couldn't go into the bar, but we could sit outside and hear them. They, for me, were the best band I ever heard in Dar es Salaam. They were playing pretty heavy jazz. Not the commercial, not the dance jazz. Well, all music in Dar es Salaam was swing at that time. It was all jazz in a way. But it was swing. These guys were also doing swing, but they were doing heavier songs, more difficult songs. They were doing things like, I don't know if you've heard, songs like Three Blind Mice, Skin Deep, Footprints, Afro Blue, stuff like that, long sax solos. Ah, tremendous band.
And all the while, there were the sounds of Tanganyika. Tell us how you heard those and what you were hearing around you.
The sounds of Tanganyika, that was very exciting. That makes your blood go. A lot of Goans didn't go to the places that I was lucky to have been taken to. But we would have, the Africans would be hired help, for want of a better word. And they would come and look after your children, do your house, whatever. So one of them was a guy called Saidi, who came in and worked for us as a cook. A very exuberant sort of man, big guy. And he loved football, and so did I. So he would say, okay, Memsab, I'm taking Toto on my shoulders, I'm going to the stadium. We're going to watch a football match. And strangely enough, the team he was rooting for, and so was I, was a team called Sunderland. You would think we were in England at the time. You know? So we go to the stadium, it was all shouting and screaming and just watching this team play football. We enjoyed maybe we had a Coke or something, and finished the match. And then he would take me to this place called the Anatoglo Hall, where there would be an African band playing. And that band, most of the time when I was taken there, was a band called the Congolese Jazz Band. Congolese Jazz Band, they were playing Congolese music and they called it jazz because it was called the Congolese Jazz Band. So he would sit me down next to the drummer and then he would go off and get his drinks, you know. And the band would be playing and I would be, you know, I wouldn't know where to look, whether I was looking at black African women and their hips and the way they were rocking them around, or the drummer, or these throbbing bass lines, these big drums. It wasn't just a drum set, there were other drums also. This whole African rhythm, which is, you know, sometimes today I wonder if that was not the beginning of acid. It was this very repetitive bass line and single note guitar solos that would go right through the thing and before going somewhere else. It was very different from stuff like Malaika and, you know, Aye Yamana. And those are very different. By the way, Malaika was sung by Miriam Makeba, I think. And so I got the chance to do that, but not for very long because Saidi didn't last for very long with us. And I grew up and somehow I didn't go there on my own. I would have to be taken there by an African. And
then so when you were in university, music was not something that you were going to make the center of your life. Tell us what you were doing in university, what you planned to do.
I left Dar es Salaam to go to Nairobi to do my A-levels. And actually I was trying to teach myself grade 7 of the classical thing. I didn't have a teacher. I didn't do very well either. But there was not much music in Nairobi. I wasn't playing anything. I was studying, playing rugby, playing football, you know, stuff like that. There were a couple of rock and roll bands, which was the first time I heard that kind of thing. And while I was there, Cliff Richard came with the Shadows to Minto Park. And from far away, I heard them opening up with this song called Apache. Which everybody who listens to the Shadows would know that song. Yeah, I finished A-levels, I came back to Dar es Salaam, and I was studying English literature in the university called Ubungo. That was the village where the university was. It was about 8 miles away from the city center. It was a very advanced university, very advanced methods of education. It was run by the West Germans. And so we would have our own student union government. We had our own bar. They said, the more you drink, the more you'll discuss and argue. And most of the guys would be arguing whatever they had heard in the college. You know? So it was quite entertaining. So it was one of those kind of universities. Playing wise in that place, I didn't do much because I had to go all the way to the city center. And so I would do that only on weekends. By that time, unfortunately, Donald had died. And I would get gigs maybe with Remy, or I'd go up to the Kilimanjaro whenever I could. And they knew me as a musician, so they would let me in. And you could, for 14 shillings, you could buy a huge jar of wine. And you could make that jar of wine last the whole night. It was fun. I would go up to the rooftop, and there was a Brazilian quartet, 2 couples, playing bass, drums, guitar, and sax. And I heard the Brazilian side of things, which was nice. And down in the main room was, oh yeah, this was amazing, was a South African band, all refugees from Joburg, Johannesburg. And they would be playing South African protest music. And that really got me. I really was interested in that. They had a completely different rhythm approach to everything. All the scales were all different, the chords were all different. And although they were singing in Afrikaans, so I couldn't really understand what they were singing about, but it was very exciting music.
But professionally, you were not going to be, you didn't see yourself being a musician. You had another...
Not at all. I was planning to become a lecturer in the same university that I was studying. So I would have to finish my course and then join another course to be a reader. And after a reader, you became an assistant lecturer. And after that, you became a lecturer. And that's the
And you wanted to study West African literature?
I wanted to study literature, and it so happened that I got caught by the West African writers and poets, and people like Chinua Achebe and Wole Soyinka, and stories about Kwame Nkrumah from Ghana, you know. So I moved more towards that, but yeah, I did Milton and Keats and all the others too. Paradise Lost and all the works.
And then what happened?
Then Tanganyika still got independence. What year was that? I don't quite remember. But it turned socialist. It became the socialist Socialist Republic of Tanganyika. And there were, I even saw Chairman Mao come down in a parade. The Chinese were there full on, the British were out. And then came this great sociological thing where everything belonged now to the state, not to individuals. So my dad had a couple of fields, we used to call them chambas. Chamba, you know, where we had mango trees and stuff like that. And he lost that overnight. He just went off to the government. And then they started to have a territorial exam. That's what they called it, a territorial exam, Standard 8. And the whole of Tanzania would have to do that exam in Standard 8. And then they would decide which school you went to. And there would be a choice, a preference for them. And the first preference was an African from Tanganyika. And the second preference was any other African. And the third preference was probably the embassy type people. And the fourth was for the richer people. And then fifth or sixth came the Indians. So it was very unlikely that my brother David would get a school that would be close to us in Dar es Salaam. And in fact, when we found out, they had sent him to a school in a place called Tabora, which is really, really far away. You know, it's about 600-700 miles away. And my dad said, this can't be. You know, how can we carry on like this? What do we do with this boy's education? And then they started closing up bank accounts and stuff like this. Dad had to beat that by sending his money all off to England. And so we decided that we would get out of that. And Dad decided that we would come to India. Many East Africans, Dar es Salaam, Kenya, Uganda, many went to England, and a hell of a lot went to Canada. And yeah, one fine day, I was 21 years old and got on the ship, and I was during monsoons. And we came down to Bombay.
Which you really liked.
Which I really liked. That's an overstatement. My goodness. Yeah. But but before we got to Bombay, the ship we were traveling on had a Goan band, jazz band, playing on it. And they would play every evening from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or something. And that really got. And as it turned out, the pianist in that band was a guy called Terence, turned out to be a second cousin of mine somehow. I never really understood how. But they were from Bombay. And then I was beginning to get to know the relations that I had in Bombay. And he says, oh, you play something? And I said, yeah, I play drums. He said, come on, that's it. And the band was called the Sunny Suto Band. He was a Bombay drummer. So I'd be playing on this ship. It was, like I said, it was monsoon, and the ship was going, rocking and rolling all over the place. And every time it yawed left, you had to catch the left cymbal so it didn't run away. While you play, if it went right, then you had to catch that cymbal, so that didn't fall over. And you were playing like this. The bass player, everybody played acoustic bass. The bass player looked like he was dancing all the time, but he was only trying to keep his balance. So we got to Bombay. And some way out, I told my dad, what's all that on the key? What are all those? They look like red ants. And he says, son, wait, hang on, you'll soon find out. They're not ants. So very eagerly waited for the ship to draw in, and to my shock and utter amazement, they were people. There were millions and millions of people, and they were all dressed in this outfit. I found out later that they were coolies. They were dressed in this reddish kind of thing, and the whole key was full of this red-colored coolie things. And then it dark, and they all came aboard, and I didn't know whether I was coming or going. I didn't know anything about this place. We had to go to an agent who would take our things all and send them all to Goa. And Dad and me and David would go to my cousin's house in Mahim. And they knew that we were coming, so they had asked me beforehand, can you get us some rock albums? And I didn't know what rock was about. I heard the Beatles and I thought they were very funny, because they were singing songs like I Want to Hold Your Hand and stuff like this. I said, this is not really on. But my nephew liked them a lot. So one day he comes up to me and says, will you give me some money? I want to buy Beatles 45. And I said, yeah, I can give you some money, but your dad, Dick, is going to get really furious with me. And I gave him the 15 shillings that he needed. He bought this Beetle 45. Oh, God. And I was so terrified of what Dick would tell me, but he didn't say anything. And yeah, my cousins asked me for an album by Brian Poole and the Tremolos. And I didn't know who the hell Brian Poole and the Tremolos were. Went to this music shop and I asked the guy, do you know anything about this band, Brian Poole and the Tremolos? He's saying, yeah, we had one album, but it's sold out now. You'll have to find out something else. And I said, okay, show me what you got. And he showed me this album of the Rolling Stones. And I think on the album, they were playing The Night Before and stuff like this. And I said, oh, this sounds something else. This sounds good. And I bought the album and I took it to Bombay and I gave it to my cousin, Merle. And they said, oh, God, we don't like this. I thought you would bring us something like, who did Wole Bole? I don't remember who did. They thought that if I couldn't get Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs. You could at least got us Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs. And I said, who's that? I didn't know anything about all this thing. And I got to Bombay. And then my cousin said, okay, you're into music and all. Do you want to go out and listen to a band? I said, wow, that'd be fantastic. And we went to this place, I guess, I didn't know, I'm thinking now maybe it was in Fountain or something, somewhere there. It was called Distro or Venice, or I don't know what. And there was this quartet playing with this lady singer. And can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And as I found out much, much later, that lady singer was Ursula. That was Kitty's elder sister, and the pianist was Johnny. And, they were playing a kind of commercial type of jazz, which I didn't particularly like, having come out of playing with Remy and all these guys in Dar es Salaam. We were playing much heavier stuff. I said, well, what is this? I mean, there's got to be better than this. And it was nice. It was better than the dance bands in Dar, but it was not quite what I wanted to hear. And we went home again, and I was terrified of Bombay. I couldn't cross the street. I couldn't do anything. I was so frightened of the traffic. And I don't know how I got through that week. Then we left, and we went to the bus station. And then I saw people eating out of dustbins and rubbish heaps. And I said, oh, God, man, what am I going to do here in this country? And we got on this bus and came to Goa. And I said, oh, wow, this is much, much, much nicer. You can breathe. It was green and lazy and happy. And it was like, I'm happy. Everybody was happy in there. Yeah, it's similar sort of thing. Everybody, susega, I learned that word later. Yeah, that was good. That's how I got here.
So let's fast forward a little. You do your BCom, and then you come back to Bombay, and you find yourself in a place that is performing music like this. Give me a minute. Let me try to get something else out.
Actually,
Stop and start again, Naresh.
Can you hear?
No.
No? Give me a minute.
Looks like a problem with the file.
Okay, sorry, that was a really bad recording. But that
Yeah.
was a place that you found yourself around the same time. That was human bondage in Blow Up.
Yeah, yeah.
You found yourself in Blow Up, and what led you there?
Yeah.
And what Blow
Well,
Up was?
Blow Up was this disco. There was a disco that was in the Taj Hotel, in which bands used to come and play. Another very famous band that came and played were the Jetliners from Ceylon. This actually that we played was bondage later on. This wasn't when I got there. When I got to Bombay, well, actually, what happened was that I had joined a band in Goa before I decided to move, while I was in college at Dempos. And we were playing kind of rock and roll kind of stuff. And I had myself formed a couple of bands in Goa called the Diamonds and the Renaissance. I was playing rock and roll kind of stuff, but Radio Ceylon kind of stuff. And when I went to Bombay, my girlfriend insisted that I take a job. And I got some ridiculous job working at Bombay International in the accounts department. I had to draw lines on a register and enter some numbers. And, oh, God. To dress up and go by train with a tie on and all this sort of stuff. And then one fine day, I got a knock on the door, and I think it was Daryl Mendonça, Loy Mendonça's elder brother, who came in and said, "Hey, man, Remo told us that you played good drums. So would you like to play with us?" And I said, "All right, and where were we going to play?" So we're going to play at this place called the Blow Up. And the band was called the Brief Encounter. So we went there and we got $1,000. You know, I was getting $300 at the job. I said, this is fantastic, this is very good. But yes, when I got to Bombay and all, the music for me was rock and roll, which I had got into in Goa previously with the hippies. Because when we came to Goa in '67, the hippies were already beginning to flock in, and the music was all very different. And I had a friend, a Turk, who made me his brother by cutting my chest with his knife and then cutting his chest with his knife and then jamming me to his chest. And he said, "Now we're blood brothers. And you can come to my house anytime." It was across the creek in Paga. And he had everything. He had Iron Butterfly, he had Kareem, he had Frank Zappa, he had all this kind of stuff. So I was now getting well into rock and roll. But when I went, also I played in Kalangut with some freaks, where I saw my first Vox AC30 amps. And we realized that now we can play much louder. These amps were pretty damn good. And still it was rock and roll, but we were doing songs like California Dreaming, you know, the hippie type of rock and roll. And so when I got to Bombay, it was rock and roll and very little jazz. And in fact, Bondage too were playing fantastic rock there. I first heard of them when they were in Delhi, but I was later told that they are from Madras. And yeah, there were various bands that came in, like the Spartans, also from Madras. Very, very, very good rock and roll band. The Bondage, and then of course there was the iconic the Waterfront. But it was all rock and roll. The rhythm was different. There was no more swing. Nobody played swing anymore. And in the hotels, there were, in the five-star hotels in Bombay, I think they were doing their last stand, jazz bands in a five-star hotel. And a certain Mr. Mike Fay came on with his Beatles songs and knocked them all off. Everybody wanted to hear Beatles songs, and that was the end of the swing era to an extent. And so rock and roll went on. Rock and roll was king. We played a lot of rock and roll all over the place. I formed a band called Sky, with an E, S-K-Y-E. And I was lucky to meet up with this friend called Mahajit Rick. We call him Gussie. He calls himself Gussie. And a bass player called Ahmad Khan from Bangalore. And the three of us got together with Michael D'Souza on keyboards from Bombay Central. And we started playing around, we played at the Blow Up as well. And yeah, rock and roll was king for quite a while. But at one point in time, I was called to this guy's house. And this guy was called Shamim Ahmed. And he was a sitar player. So we went up there, and then we were rockers, and he was a sitar player. And we were playing rock rhythms to his sitar music, Indian style music. That was the first time I got into Indian music, and you know, the whole head trip of it. It's quite complicated mathematics. This would seem to be going on. And on our second or third rehearsal, he said, "Okay, play a rhythm. I tell you how to play." So I said, "Okay, what is the rhythm?" He says, "Play chicken biryani." So I said, "What? How do I play chicken biryani?" He says, "No, think about it. Play chicken biryani." I was at a loss. I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. And neither the bass player nor the guitar player, anybody said, "What the hell is this now?" He says, "You play a rhythm like this. Chicken, 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 biryani ka, chicken, 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 biryani ka, chicken, chicken, chicken." I said, "Wow, this is really, really fantastic." And we played this thing and all, and then he said, "Okay, I'm going to get us to go to England." Wow. And we're going to record there in some Iggy Poo Studios or something like this. And we were getting all very, very excited until the English laws got in the way. And they said, "You are not members of the guild, and so you cannot come and play here. You can't play at all. You know, you can't record, you can't come." I said, "Finish." Oh. And that ended. That was my first taste of Indian rock and roll, if you want to call it that. While we were playing in Bombay, Xerxes, the bass player of the Human Bondage, joined us. They had some kind of problem. I don't know what it was. And
I can see Angela Gobai is on the
yes,
screen.
Angela. Yes, I saw it too.
All? Okay.
Yeah, that's Angie. Yeah, that's
Good to know you're listening. And hi there.
One of the loveliest ladies I've ever met. Loveliest couple, real gentleman couple. One day I asked him, "Hey man," and Xerxes, "what do you want to be?" So he says, "No, what do you want to be?" I said, "I want to become a good drummer, you know, get up, start playing with some big bands." "What do you want to be?" And he told me, "I want to be a gentleman of leisure." That was fantastic, man. Yeah.
Well, we can see him sort of on his easy chair back there, looking fairly leisurely.
Yeah.
So I think he may have achieved his ambition. Hi.
Hi, Xerxes, if you're there. Yeah. So yeah, that was how we went. Of course, the other side of the kind of rock and roll that we were playing was the Waterfront, who were doing completely very different stuff. Very head stuff, all of their own music, in fact. That was a band that lived together up in Yogeshwari. And that was very, very good music. They went off to Germany and tried to make it over there, and they had a very hard time. And they came back, and I went to this fantastic concert that they did when they came back. It was at the Grand Hotel in, what's the area behind Ballad Estate. In Ballad Estate, the Grand Hotel. And they did this concert there. It was really, really, they were a great band. Yeah.
And then you found yourself in Delhi.
No, I didn't actually. I had formed Sky. We were playing around here, there, and everywhere. And then the guitar player, Gussie Rick, he joined Braz's band at the Oberoi. Braz Gonzalez had come to Bombay. And Kitu, the singer who had just joined us earlier with Sky, she also joined Bras Gonsalves' band because I think Pam Crane and the guitar player Adi, one. So the two of them went, and Xerxes and I were out on a limb. And I started playing with bands like Goody Savai and Johnny Baptist, Cyril Siqueira, other big band leaders in Bombay, but mostly dance band leaders. And getting by until there was a what do you call, what they used to have, a beat contest, a beats contest going on. I believe it was in Shanmukananda. And we played the contest, and I don't think the band won, but I won. And I was quite happy, and I was walking around outside when somebody said, someone's calling you at the gate, go there and see what's happening. And I went there and I found Kitu and Yvonne, Kitu's sister, standing at the gate. And I said, yeah, what's up? They said, oh man, Bras Gonsalves wants you to join his band. I was floored. I said, oh my God, this is going to be really something, because I know he's a major jazz influence. Right through his life, he's always been there. So I said, wow, here we go, back to jazz again. And I said, yes, of course. Went and we had a few practice sessions, and I got back into jazz. And gradually, the bass player Xerxes also came into the band. It was like Sky playing with jazz now, with Bras Gonsalves. And the 2 years I spent with him for education, music education at its peak. He taught us so many things without ever saying a word to us. I mean, you know, he just played away. One night, we used to play at the Holiday Inn in Juhu. And I would see guys coming in from America, from Berkeley, from, I don't know where, they said they were from Berkeley, or I don't know. They would come into the restaurant and sit on the front seat, and they would be transfixed by Bras. They would, you know, be trying to get it all in themselves. Some of them would be even writing down notation. Yeah, so one night Bras said, okay, you're from Goa, so you know what the monsoons are like. So I said, yeah, I know what the monsoons are like. All right, play. I said, this is nice to play with the monsoons. And I started, you know, the thunder and the lightning and the cymbal cracking and cracks of gunshots on the snare drum, all this kind of thing. And he went berserk. He started playing so wild, and man, the whole band was taken aback. All of us, Xavier, Gussie, and actually, there was a request earlier for him to play Take 5, which was a perennial request. I think it's perennial till today. Everybody wants to play Take 5. So he played all over the place. While he was playing like truck horns, and he was playing like whistles, and, you know, out of register stuff. And at the end of it, and we were playing just free. I was just going hell for leather on drums, you know, monsoon full on. At the end of the whole thing, he suddenly played just that of Take 5, and at the end, I said, "This is the bestest version I ever heard of this song. It was fantastic." He's an amazing man. His musicianship is out of this world. I really enjoyed my 2 years with him. And then that came to an end, unfortunately. And Gussie and I decided that we wanted to form our own band, and that we were tired of playing rock and roll and playing jazz, because it didn't have much money in it. You know, I said, well, we got to make some money. What are we doing? Just playing. Now we're enjoying ourselves. We're not making any money. We're still coming by bus. Still got 1 rupee to get from the bus from Bandra to Juhu. So we formed a band, and we got a lawyer on keyboard, and I think Charlie was on bass, Charles Brito. And we got ourselves a little job at hotel called Horizon, just right close to Holiday Inn. We started playing the stuff like Teddy Pendergrass, funky soul kind of stuff, maybe a little pop as well. We're trying to explore a new kind of sound. And we did that for about 6 months or something, and we said, okay, we're pretty good now. Let's try and get a job. And I suggested that if we're going to try and do that, let's go right to the top. So let's go to the Taj. The last time they wanted us to play there, and with all our long hair and dirty jeans and things, I wondered if they would ever want us to play there. So we went there and we played at the Taj. And I told the guys, look, this guy, this manager, I'm told, and all of them, they have this habit of making requests. And the band plays and you finish a song and then they come and say, can you play this song? And that probably won't be the kind of song we would like to play. It would be like, I Will Survive or something, you know. So I said, what we do is we don't stop. We go from song to song. I just count the next song in. As this one ends, you go 2, 3, 4, and the next one starts. And we did the whole audition for about 1 hour, non-stop. And the guy came up and says, we thought it was a good audition. We'd like to have you, and so. And they gave us coffee, this stuff. And we wanted to discuss about the money. So he says, how much do you want? So I said, we wanted 14,000 for the whole band. And we were getting 6,000 at the Horizon. I said, I knew it was a big jump, but I said, what the hell, let's go into it full on and see what happens. And he says, no, we can't manage that. We can give you 11,000. Think about it, and come to the office Monday morning. No, we'll decide, we'll set it up. And we were very happy. We're getting 11,000. I was still going to fight for 14. So we got back to Charlie's house in Bandra. We bought a bottle of booze and sat down, and Gussie took out his acoustic guitar, Charlie acoustic guitar. Loy had to go home, I think. Loy was very young. And we were playing and having a drink and enjoying ourselves. And there was this knock on the door. And this guy walks in, introduces himself as Bunny. And he says, look, who's Steve? So I said, I'm Steve. Said, okay. He says, I know, I like your band. I know where you've been. I know you've auditioned at the Taj. I know how much you quoted, and I know how much they're offering you. And we sat back and said, how do you know all this? How can it just happen today? How do you know all this? Oh, if you don't worry, we have our sources. We'd like you to come to Delhi. And the three of us are looking at each other and saying, well, is this true? Can we believe this? And what is this? He says, yeah, we'd like you to come to Delhi. And we're going to pay you $25,000. We said, this is absolutely fantastic, man, you know. So we said, all right, what do we have to do to get there? He said, you don't have to do anything. I'll sort everything out. I'll get your tickets and everything, and you come to Delhi. We found out later that Mike Faye's band was playing at this hotel that we were supposed to go to. It was at the Moria Hotel. It was at the Bali High. And I think, I don't know, he was giving them some trouble or something like that, or he was leaving or something, and they needed a new band. And so they took us down by train. And while on our journey by train, it stopped at a station, and one of us jumped out and bought a newspaper. And we saw in this newspaper this big ad. Ebony is flying. Ebony is flying. And we said, Ebony is flying. We are Ebony. And we're coming by train, you know, what is this? Yeah, it's flying. We'll be landing at such and such a time in Delhi. Gussie and we were looking at each other and said, shucks, this is some kind of promo. This is fantastic. And we got to the train station in Delhi, and they weren't even there to meet us. We had to go with Gussie's uncle, who helped us to get to the Moria. And then these four long-haired, jeans-wearing guys sauntered into the Moria Hotel to the coffee shop. And I said, yeah, we're here. And okay, so I said, we'd like you to start in 2 or 3 days' time. We'll put you up at this place down the road. This was winter. This was, I think, in Jan. And there was another band playing there as a stopgap. So they took us up to the restaurant. I could see managers turning around and looking at us up and down and kind of clothes we were wearing, stuff like this. And we heard that band, all right. And we went to our rooms, wherever we went to stay. And they said, now we'll take you out tonight. And they did, and they took us to the Oberoi, where Mike Fay was playing. And we heard Mike playing, and they said, this is the best band in Delhi. They had a fantastic band. And they were very good, very, very rehearsed and all that sort of stuff. And we were happy. We came back and we said, our stuff is very different, but let's hope these people like us. We were doing commercial stuff as well. I mean, we were doing Daddy Cool and we were doing Funky Town, but we were doing it much more driving, much more rock-based. And so the day came when we had to open up for the Bali High. And we were staying a little way down the road. So we were staying so close that we couldn't get a cab to go there. And we decided to walk. And we walked from that place to the hotel in time. And by the time we reached the hotel, none of the singers had any voice left. The winter had just taken it away. Kita couldn't sing a note. Charlie couldn't sing a note. Roy was all gone. He couldn't reach anything. And I wasn't a singer at all. So we said, oh, what do we do? We have to start tonight. And we went there. I think we had a couple of shots of brandy each to ease the problem off. And we opened the place up. And we hit them with such a bang that that place was packed for 3 years, right down from the 18th floor where the Bali High was, down to the lifts, down to the lobby, and people are outside the hotel waiting in line to get to the Bali High. And that was my introduction to Delhi. That's when I got to Delhi. Bit of a long story.
And a few fans in high places.
In Delhi later on, yeah. Well, these people from the Moria were also pretty influential.
In 1982, the Asian Games happened, and you found yourself.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah, we used to play for a lot of American school proms and quite a few shows that were outside the Moria. We even played in Patiala at the time. It was quite something. We went by Shaktiman, one of these huge trucks. We're getting ourselves quite a name over there. And suddenly we got this message. He didn't even speak to any of us. We got this message saying that the Asian Games were going to be on and that Rajiv Gandhi would like us to play for us. I said, wow, this is quite an honor. And we said, yes, of course. They took us there, and we had this huge stage. And we started playing. I'm not sure it was the opening or the closing of the Asian Games. But we started playing, and athletes from all over the world were prancing up and down the stage and doing somersaults and doing trapeze-type acts and all sorts of stuff. It was a very wild party we played for. But we enjoyed it. We had a great time.
You got paid a lot of money for it.
We got paid nothing. They didn't pay us anything. They said, I think it's an honor for you to play there. Shouldn't that be enough for you? Something of that sort. We got paid nothing. But we enjoyed it. It was great fun. Yeah, Delhi was good.
And then you found yourself back in Delhi in a few years for a slightly longer time.
I came back to Delhi. We had to leave. Memory gets a little hazy here. We had to leave. And I came back with I believe it was with Roger Dragonet and Derek Julian, and we picked up Anaclet from Bombay as a pianist. And we came to Goa. We got a job. The owner of Claridge's Hotel was related. I think his brother was at the Majorda Beach Resort, and he wanted us to be there. So we came to Goa in 1984, at the time when Indira Gandhi got shot. And we just missed all the hullabaloo that went on in Delhi. We had left just before that. So when we got to our hotel, we were told that we were playing here, but that we wouldn't start for another 4 days. And we played there for a while, Derek Julian and all of us. But it didn't go down very well. And Derek and Roger decided that they wanted to go back to Pune. And Anaclet wanted to go back to Bombay. So sort of, that would be the end of that. And then one fine day, a friend of mine called Roy Fernandes, he's from Mapsa. He landed up and he says, hey Steve, I've just come back from Dubai, or wherever, somewhere in the Gulf. And I have this huge PA system. And that's when, while we were in Goa, we realized that the bands that were playing in Goa, all these guitar bands, they were playing with 10,000 watts of sound. And I said, geez, I wouldn't even know how to connect that. You know? They were doing this massive thing. And one day we went for a show. Some of the bands were playing. I remember one band was Limits. My friend Selvin Carvalho was playing bass with them. And we were right outside there was an open air field. And you could hear that kick drum hit into your stomach from there. The bass was oof. And we said, wow, this is what playing in Goa is going to be like. And we did it. We did a few gigs with that kind of sound, which we did, somebody else handled. So when Roy came over, I had already realized that sound in Goa was very, very important. You need to have you have to be louder than everybody else. And so, as if that made much of a difference, but that's the way it was. And so I came back. We were in Majorda at the time. And I came back to Mapsa, to my parents' house in Mapsa, Alki. And we formed up this band. And we did it originally with 2 keyboard players. I had a friend of mine called Tony Norona who would play keyboards. I would play keyboards, both on synths, bass and drums, and keeping. And we started to do pretty out of the way rock and roll. We were doing stuff like, oh God, we were doing some Dire Straits and stuff when we started off. But later, when the band progressed and we got better and got other musicians coming in, we were doing stuff by a band called Level 42. And Howard Jones and Thomas Dolby, and songs like Hyperactive. And that was the beginning of the new Sky in Goa, which had a rollicking time. We really rock and roll in Goa for two or 3 years, I think 3 seasons. Before we found out that although we were having a great time, I was on the beach most of the day and we were rehearsing most of the rest of the time. And we had a great band, but we weren't making any money. I mean, we could get 3,000 rupees for the whole band to play for a wedding. It was really decent. When you think today, the bands in Goa are charging 60, 70, 80,000 for a wedding. So anyway, so we decided to go our own way and I went back to Bombay. And I spent about a year playing with a friend of mine on guitar at a resort in Malad. And we played there every night, and Saturday, Sunday, there would be a big crowd and we played. By this time, I had already quit drums. because earlier on when I was with the Sky, I got an ulcer attack and landed up in hospital and had to be operated on. And this was during Carnival. And when I came out of that operation, I couldn't straighten myself up for a very long time. And you probably know drums is quite a physical instrument. You really put it all out there. I really couldn't get to that reason. And I said, I've got to get by with some money without the drums. What to do? I can't play drums. And that's when I decided to put my mom's lessons to use. I started playing piano. Well, synth, not piano, synth. And it worked. I mean, I managed to get by. I practiced a lot. And so we played quite a while. We were a very, very good band. A lot of people remember us even today. And but like I said, we were not making much money, so we went off back to Bombay. By this time, I had 2 children, I had 2 little girls. So the responsibilities were adding up. My friend's sister came along and said, she was from Delhi. And she said, why don't you come to Delhi? I mean, you'll do much better off over there. And that's how we got back to Delhi. We had to audition at places like Ashoka and a couple of other hotels like this, which we didn't get for one reason or another. And finally, I think there was a gentleman called Shashi Pancholi. You may or may not have heard of him. He was quite a famous guy. And he was at the time at the Holiday Inn, and he knew Kitu. So he says, why don't you come here and audition? We did, and we were back at the Holiday Inn, Barakamba Road. The 3 of us, that means the guitar friend of mine, Kitu, and me. And by this time, we had drum machines playing. I was playing bass on a Moog and keyboards on a Roland. And Harry would be playing guitar. And we did fairly well. Before the management came and asked me if I would like to form a band because they were opening a new restaurant upstairs. And I spoke to Harry and he was not really that keen. So I managed to call a couple of guys down from Goa. One was Victor Alvarez, who unfortunately later died while he was in Remo's band in Cannes. He came over and we formed this band and we moved up to this restaurant called the Silk Orchid. And we started playing over there. That was this long stint in Delhi, where we were almost 25 years. And we ended up by playing, now we, as things go in hotels in Delhi, your contracts last for 6 months and then they renew it and they renew it. And one fine day, they don't renew it. And then you gotta go find another hotel to find out if they take you there and so on. Merry-go-round would go around with all the bands. And we were living in near the South Delhi campus at the time. And there was a band, a pianist called Mohsin Menezes, who had his own band. And that was a fully jazz band. Again, back to swing and Latin bossa nova. And who asked whether Kitu could come and sing for him for a week, I think it was, with his band. And Kitu knew all these songs, I guess, coming from a background of Chick Chocolate and all these people. She just knew all the songs. She could sing all of them. She knew all the words too also. I knew when I was playing on some chord which didn't quite fit right. She would tell me. And she said, look, I've got to go for rehearsal and I've not sung with band. I'd like to get some practice at home. And I said, okay, I'll sit down on this keyboard and try and play these chords that these songs go by. And now all the jazz songs and all are either in F, which is 1 flat, or they're in B flat, they're in E flat, or they're in A flat, and you find yourself, you're playing more black notes than white notes. And all that you've done all this time playing synthesizer was playing white notes. And so I had to get used to that. And then I also found out that these standards would start on a black key, but the bridge would be in a white key. So that made things much simpler. I could handle that. And so that's how I got to playing jazz again, just with Kiko. And she went and did her week's gig with Mosey Menezes, which went very well. And then we decided, why don't we just play jazz? And we decided that that's what we do. So we started playing. I don't remember who came and played bass among us. And as the time went by, a lady called Maya Sami contacted us and said she had put in a word for us at the Oberoi. And the Oberoi were looking for a jazz band. We thanked her very much. We went over to the Oberoi and we had this audition. And the F&B manager liked us and he said, all right, you start. And you're going to play at the La Rochelle, the Oberoi. It was a cigar lounge, cigar and wine lounge. So we had to play that kind of jazz, sophisticated, light, no aggression, nothing like this. And they gave me a baby grand to play on. Unfortunately, it had pretty bad action, but I mean, it was like butter. And I was told later on that when Louis Banks used to play at the Oberoi, he would play on that same piano. He practiced hours and hours and hours on that piano. Yeah, that's nice. Now I'm playing a piano that Louis Banks used to play. That's good. And we started playing piano, upright bass, and drums. And we had Fancho Mendes on acoustic bass and Horace on drums. And we would play this jazz.
We'll give everybody a sense of what you sounded like around 2002 in that recording. And I hope this actually works this time. Crossing fingers.
Yeah, okay. Yes, sir.
And so that was the Jazz Yatra from 2002, the Indian Jazz Yatra with a lot of Indian bands. I think let's open this up now. Let's start taking questions from everybody. Type them, I think, how do we do this, Alok? People type questions into the Zoom window and then we read them out.
We'll actually encourage everyone to put their cameras on now. And, so we can see your faces, and please stay on mute. And if you want to ask a question, just unmute yourself. And instead of a question answer session, we can actually have a conversation with Steve. So it can be like a conversation, and Naresh, you can lead it. So anybody who wants to speak, you put your hand up, and then I'll call you out, and you unmute yourself, and you can sort of ask Steve a question. So, and it'll really work if all of you put your cameras on. Thanks.
I want to ask a question of Mr. Gobai there. Do Steve's memories match yours?
Yes, some of them I know nothing about because he never mentioned that to me. But yeah, had a really good time playing with Steve and all the other guys, Gussie and Loy and all of them. It was great.
Right on, sir.
When you all were in Delhi, Steve, I was telling you, you had so many fans you didn't even know about them. The other day, I was having a conversation with the historian Sanjay Subramaniam, the sort of legendary historian. And he said he was following you all when he was a college student. His brother then grew up and became our foreign minister, Jai Shankar. So there were all sorts of people in that audience when you were playing. He took lessons, he said, from Gussie Rick.
Yeah, he was a friend of Gussie and Loy's more than.
And followed you all across your careers, and he kept track of you all still.
Yeah, that's right, Sanjay. That's right.
Any more questions? I look for a show of hands.
Mr. Anil Rao wanted to say something.
Anil Rao, hello, man. How are you?
Stevie, I thought I knew you, and now you have been telling me things that I have absolutely no clue about.
Yeah,
this is amazing. That's amazing.
There's so much that happened.
Yeah, but first, thanks to everyone for making this happen, because this is amazing to be able to actually get to know someone I thought I knew. So yeah, and I noticed Xerxes out there.
Yeah, sure.
In the corner. Xerxes, are you out there? Yes.
Yeah.
Do you remember that time, Xerxes, when we were a slip disc and Jimmy Page and Robert Plant walked in? I just made that mention.
Yeah.
And they played this gig for about an hour or two, and it was just mind-blowing. Can you imagine these guys walked out from the Taj, and they just walked in and played this gig because Xerxes was out there. The band had some of them had walked out for a smoke or something, and then these guys turned up and they played with you. You remember that, Xerxes? Oh.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Ah, there you are. Yes, I was wondering whether...
Go ahead.
Sorry? No, it was what, 71, 72 or something?
Something around that time, yes.
Yes. So okay, I'll cede the time to someone else. Any other questions?
Steve.
Yeah.
Hi, Steve. Who are you playing with now?
So now I have a jazz band called Jasmine with a bass player who used to be in Delhi, but I don't know if you knew him, but he was around when we were around in Delhi. There's a guy called Mark Fernandes. He's Alex Fernandes' brother. He's a very good bass player. And and sometimes Derek plays guitar with us. And of late, Sanjay Joseph has been playing guitars with us. And that's the jazz setup. That's Jasmine. Then I also have a rock and roll band called Boom. Can you believe it? Boom. And yeah, we had a guy called Nevin DeMello on guitar, very good guitar player. Darren Dagama on bass. And Bosco D'Souza on drums. And I play keyboards. Yeah, I don't think you would know these guys. But Goan musicians have come a long way and they're playing really well.
This has been pretty amazing. We've gone for an hour and a half.
Have we?
So let's ease out of this with a track that you have composed. And it's called Bouncing Ahead.
Yeah, can I say something here?
Let me figure out how to do this. You would think after all these tries I had got it down perfectly. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Steve, for this wonderful conversation. And I look forward to continuing it with you in non-COVID times. I notice nobody's wearing a mask. This is all terrible. Good night.
Naresh, if you want to play some more music, we have time.
One more song, Naresh.
Yeah.
Let's see what we got.
Steve, anything else to say? Please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wanting to tell you that this song, Bouncing Ahead, was recorded by my friend Arjun Sen, AJ, in his studio in Delhi in Shivalik Nagar. And it doesn't mean bouncing forward. It means bouncing your head. And ahead in music is the tune, it's the verse. So a song would be made up of a verse, and a bridge, and a verse. So you play through all that, you know, A, B, A, and then you go back to the head. So the head is the tune of the song. This is what it means, bouncing a tune. Yeah. And also I want to say thank you, guys. Thank you, Nilankur and Alok and Reggie and
so much,
Nas and Naresh and everybody for having me on this thing. Really
This
great.
was wonderful.
Okay.
Jerusha had a question.
Jerusha has a question. Yes, sorry about that.
Hi.
Hi, Sherman. How are you?
Oh, we are fantastic. Who was accompanying you for the Jazz Yatra in 2002?
That was Brennan Denfer on bass, Maxi Peters on guitar, and Joshua Grant, the son of a very famous drummer, Buster Grant. Joshua Grant was on drums.
Okay, wow, that bass line was wow.
This was you're talking about the last song you heard?
No, yeah, I'm talking about no, the one, the Jazz Yatra song that was played
Okay.
prior to this.
That, by the way, was the composition of Louis Banks.
Oh, sure.
Really? Yeah, it was a composition by Louis Banks.
Wow.
When I came to ask him if he could, help me out with things a little bit and all, he said, "Okay, listen, Steve, I'm going to give you these bits of printed sheet music." He had written all this out in this beautiful, beautiful notational writing.
Okay.
And he said, you take these about 15 songs, and he said, learn them and play them, and automatically your jazz playing will improve. And by Lord, it did, man. It's like, oh God. So that song was called "Monk Wears a New Hat."
Monk Wears a New Hat.
And it's based on a track by Thelonious Monk, great American jazz pianist. I really wrote it about him. Yeah.
Okay, fine. All right. Wow, very, very good to know.
Yeah, sure. There are lots of these little stories in between, aren't there?
Yeah, everything has a story attached.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Hi, Steve. I'm Feli speaking, and
Feli. Hi, Feli. Oh, good to see you, man. Hi.
I'm in Nancy's house, and I'm really relishing the moment because simultaneously we are exploring some other stories here, which you know what I'm talking about. But I'm really grateful for Alok, Reggie, Neil to really connect, and I've never seen Legend. I've seen you, I met you because we are neighbors. But thank you for sharing some real insight.
Great, thank you, Feli, and I really appreciate all the work you're doing for my village.
Our village,
our village, yes.
Steve,
yes.
If you're not too tired, could you tell us a little bit about your father-in-law?
My father-in-law, the famous chief doctor. Unfortunately, Reggie, I only got to India in '67, and that's when he had passed away. So I was unfortunate that I never met him, but I had heard about him, and I heard recordings of him and his band at the Taj or something. Seemed to be one hell of a trumpet player. It was my misfortune that I never got to hear him. But yeah, that's how it was. It's a pity, but.
Thanks.
But he's left such a legacy with his daughters and sons and all that. I mean, that just doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from some great music genes. Yeah.
Where's Kitu?
Kitu is told not to come in because you don't want to see people walking around and all this other stuff. So she's probably making in there. Yeah. No, it was really nice having this thing going on. I'm so happy I got to see so many people. Thank you, Nalini. Thank you, Jennifer, Xerxes, Angie, Feli. All you guys are so nice to connect up again.
Naresh, you sing the last song for us?
Don't get surprised. I'm coming now to your house. I'm just outside.
Oh, really? Hey, you're very welcome. Come over, please. Bring Nancy along with you. Oh, put your mask on.
Yes, well said, Steve, well said.
Yeah.
Do you think we have time for one last song? I think everyone will enjoy one last song as we say goodbye.
Okay, I think we let's repeat Monk Wears a Hat because that's all we got on the computer now.
Awesome. Okay, fine. Really? इतना चार पाँच है
And it doesn't seem to be playing. Let's try again.
Alok, can I say something?
Yes.
I just wanted to say, when Louis gave me this song, it was a song written for piano, you know. And when we played it, and he says, "How the hell did you think of playing the tune on bass?" And I think that really made the song for us. We had Brennan play the whole tune. That really got him. Very thrilled that he liked that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Naresh, are you okay?
Yeah, I seem to think that
Yeah, I think to do it again.
I think the tech has decided to pack up on me. The track refuses to work. So we're going to have to go out with the sounds of silence.
Should we just...
Naresh, is it
All
the
right.
one? Is it the track you sent me?
It's the track I sent you. It's called
I'll play.
Monk in Your Hat. Can you
I'll
put
play.
it on?
It says unknown track, unknown album, but I'll play it.
All right.
Oh, no. Oh, shit. That's in for a surprise.
Yeah.
That was lovely.
Yeah. That was not one question you had, though. That was bouncing ahead. Doesn't matter. No problem.
Guys, I'm going to have to be, I think we'll have to now end now. Thank you so much, everyone. We've been on for like 1 hour, 40 minutes. I think the last session. Steve, you captivated, you got us. It was fascinating. We have to do a follow-up session, Steve. I think there's many stories to be told.
Yes, oh yes.
Crashed the
Yeah.
today. I was foolish of us to think we'd finish it in 90 minutes. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Guys, if you really liked our talk today, please go on thuslive.com and make a small donation to Thus Critique. we recommend a 200 rupee donation per person per session, because a lot of costs go into us putting together these sessions. I mean, all of us work voluntarily out of our own interest, but there are certain costs that we can't avoid. So we really appreciate that, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Steve, so much. Thank you, Naresh. I know you're really, really busy, all of you. Thank you so much, guys. And thank you. Have a great Monday night, a great rest of the week, guys. And stay safe. Ciao.
All right, ciao.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alok. Yeah.
Finally, we get to hear your voice. Talk, please talk.
What do you want me to say? Come over, let's share some happiness, man. That's right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sherman. Purusha, nice to see you, lady.
Hi.
Creedence not around. Huh? There she goes, little Creedence. Hi, Creedence. Hi, lovely. You did, thank you. I'm glad you did. Soon you'll be playing like that a whole lot better. Yes, I know, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I won't let you get away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks, Steve.
All right.
Thank you all. Thank you all.